Guantanamo, they actually used music to break prisoners. So the idea that my music had a role in that is kind of outrageous.
The CIA believes that it would be easy to interrogate these people if they were weakened.
The music was so loud, and it was probably some of the worst torture that they faced.
All right, Chris, you take it from the top. We're ready.
Okay. It's incredible where you can go in your imagination. Hitch a ride on a cloud or go... No, screwed it up. Well, I've always liked music. I think most people do, actually. Music means good luck to me, among many other things, but I love that I've had a chance to write music partly for a living and largely for fun, that's also helping people. It's incredible where you can go in your imagination.
Christopher Cerf is a composer for Sesame Street. His music helps to teach young children how to read and write. For 40 years, he's been working for the famous children's television show. During this time, he's written more than 200 songs.
There's a rainbow of beautiful colors waiting for you.
For his work, Christopher has won many awards. In the show, the quirky Sesame Street residents like Ernie or Big Bird sing his songs. The lyrics are to do with magic numbers, strange words, or the names of the colors. But these innocent children's songs were abused for inhumane purposes. In 2003, it transpired that the US Army tortured detainees with Sesame Street music for days.
Now, my first reaction was, this can't possibly be true. This is just too crazy. And it was absurd. But of course, I didn't really like the idea that I was helping break down prisoners. But it was much worse when I heard later that they were actually using the music in Guantanamo to actually do deep, long-term interrogations, and obviously to inflict enough pain on prisoners so they would talk.
After terrorists had attacked the US on September the 11th, 2001, the government struck back immediately. The global war on terror began. Worldwide, US soldiers and their allies rounded up as many suspects as possible to interrogate them. They were not exactly squeamish in dealing with the detainees. These images sparked worldwide outrage in 2004. They show how US soldiers abuse Iraqi detainees in Bagram prison. Until recently, this document was top secret. It's a guideline for interrogation methods compiled by the Office of Medical Services of the American Secret Service, the CIA. The medical specialists carefully describe the torture procedures CIA agents are allowed to use during interrogations. They focus on methods that leave no visible traces on the prisoners, such as noise and loud music. Permitted noise levels are as follows: music as loud as the noise of a highway for 18 hours a day, at the volume of a cranked-up motorbike for 8 hours. as loud as a truck engine at full throttle, for 4 hours, and as loud as a jackhammer for 2 hours. Human rights groups fought in court for the publication of these torture guidelines. Still, most of the pages look like this. For reasons of national security, the government says. But for human rights researchers such as Thomas Keenan, they still form a clear picture of what musical torture methods were used.
Prisoners were forced to put on headphones. They were attached to chairs. Headphones were attached to their head, and they were left alone just with the music for very long periods of time, sometimes hours, even days on end, listening to repeated loud music. Music was being used at Guantanamo, at Bagram, in Kabul and Afghanistan, and in any number of hidden sites.
Music as torture, this absurd idea, troubles Christopher so much that he's decided to go on a journey to find out more about how and why music is used in this way.
This is fascinating to me because of the horror of music being perverted to serve evil purposes, if you like. But I'm also interested in how that's done. What is it about music that would make it work for that purpose? I also want to sort of learn about why anybody would even think of doing something like that. I'm not really so troubled that my songs got used. It's the idea that they're torturing people at all, and I really feel pretty strongly about it. It seems really incredible to me that America would be torturing prisoners at all. After all, we've fought wars in the past against countries who do that to try to get them to stop doing it. So the idea that we would be doing it ourselves to save our own freedom is very ironic.
Christopher's first stop is Chicago. Here, he wants to meet a soldier who served as a prison guard in Guantanamo for 9 months. Chris Arendt was only 19 years old when he witnessed how prisoners were tortured with music. He finally left the army and started to criticize their methods publicly. Now, aged 23, he is unemployed and homeless.
Well, Chris, I've been really interested in coming to talk to you because some of my music even might have been used down there. Did you ever see music being used at Guantanamo?
Oh, yeah. It was in the Gold Building. I mean, music would just blast out of that room. It's like they had a whole concert. It was like it was like a dance club style music system that they had set up, just rocking in this room with all just kind of like American, rock music. You leave somebody in there for a couple hours like that in a stress position. I've seen interrogations go on for 10, 12 hours. I worked 12-hour shifts, and several times I came in right at the beginning of my shift and moved a detainee into an interrogation booth and then didn't ever for the rest of that day move that person out. And sometimes it was like 2 songs playing against each other, completely off tempo, just like blaring, say this rock music with like a Johnny Cash song against each other.
And they play them both to in the same room, to the same guy.
Yeah. the whole interrogation thing seems so weird. They focus so much on using things that weren't necessarily... I guess I just had such amped up expectations of what torture was that when I saw torture as, listening to music and stressful positions, I think like most people, it just didn't really strike me. And I think my head had a hard time working around why that was really torture. But then, I came to realize it's, these are just really insidious psychological techniques that are being utilized, and it's not the torture of like a movie. We don't have people wired up to racks, and we don't have, we're not pulling out toenails. What we are doing is leaving them in really uncomfortable positions on the floor in the cold for hours and hours and hours, listening to music that's way too loud, that they hate on many cultural bases, just things to piss them off and break them down. But I think that most of them were already pretty broken. I don't know how effective these things were, because I think that just being in the cage alone had already broken a lot of people.
You feel it really changed your life?
Definitely.
For the worse?
For a long time, these feelings of, this guilt, these feelings that this was wrong, weighed on me very heavily, because I think that this was a really huge wake-up call for me, and I don't know if I would have wanted to continue to be in my self-centered little American bubble.
Was there one thing in particular? Was it the war itself, or was it what you had to do, or both, that made you feel this way?
It's all those things. It's all of them together. It's that my experience in this one place was so horrible, but this one place is just, really just the smallest tip of the iceberg. The awareness of the amount of injustice that's going on in this war, to me, is totalizing. It doesn't allow me room to think about anything else.
Music torture. This perfidious idea has been around for thousands of years. However, the Koreans and the Chinese were the first to systematically use music as a psychological weapon during the Korean War in the early 1950s. For 3 years, North Korea and China fought against South Korea and the United States. More than 7,000 Americans were captured. Many were tortured.
The idea of light and noise being used in interrogation really started with the North Koreans and the Chinese, and it started in the Korean War, and it was called brainwashing. It got very big at the time. So I guess since that time there has been a belief that that music would work in interrogation purposes.
After the Korean War, experiments were conducted at McGill University to better understand the methods of the Chinese. Scientists injected drugs into test subjects, kept them awake for days, and blasted them with music, with devastating effects. The results of these tests were supposed to better train American soldiers to withstand torture, but the CIA used them to optimize their own interrogation methods. The US intelligence guidelines show how an anti-torture training program was turned into a manual for torturers, a cynical case of re-engineering. The goal is to confuse the prisoners, to break them psychologically, and to make them feel utterly weak and powerless. Two of the preferred tools, noise and loud music. The CIA allows up to 72 hours of continuous deafening sound during interrogations, making it impossible to sleep.
My understanding is that the CIA believes that it would be easy to interrogate these people if they were weakened. if they didn't have the will that they were brought in with. But I have absolutely no answers for why or what went on.
But how does music torture work? To find out, Christopher is on his way to meet a man who knows everything about torture methods.
I don't think music has a dark side so much as the use of music could have a dark side. You can write a song that's very dark, or you can use a perfectly normal song for dark purposes. Any song, I would think, if you played it over and over and loud enough and incessantly enough for a long enough time, would drive anybody crazy.
In rural Pennsylvania, Chris wants to meet Mike Ritz. He is a former US Army interrogator and now works as a consultant for the government. But he hasn't lost his old skills. There are few people who know more about music torture than he does.
Mike?
Hey, how
Hi,
are you?
Chris Cerf, how are you?
Ah, good. How are you?
I'd love to try to understand a little bit better about how music is used in interrogation.
The name of the game here is to create some dependency of that prisoner on the interrogator. You want that prisoner dependent on the interrogator. And the more you can isolate that person, the better you're going to be able to do that. And sound is an isolation, up here. Whereas, you saw in a lot of reports of Guantanamo Bay and stuff, other things like mittens, so that there's no tactile function.
Oh, I see.
Or goggles so you can't see, or hoods. These are all designed to isolate the individual, and sound is another way of doing it. Yeah.
So just having so much sound that you can't experience any other sound is,
Correct.
is the idea.
Right.
So
You maybe can't even
Yeah.
hear yourself think.
Right. So for that point of view, it's not so much that it's musical, it's just that it's incredibly loud, or that it keeps you from hearing anything else.
Yeah, also could keep you awake, so you won't sleep, so it creates some sort of sleep deprivation. It's all designed to keep you closed in your own small
Right.
world as a prisoner, so that you can't, you have this fear of the unknown and this stress sort of building and building.
But then you're still saying that it's the person who saves you from that, partially, that has a chance to get a good answer from you.
To get to the truth.
Right.
I mean, that's what people
Yeah.
have to focus on, that this is about the truth.
Right.
So it's a matter of balancing things. I mean, you do want some stress, because what gets you to talk to me isn't the stress I put on you. It's the release from the stress.
Got it. I'd love to get some sense of what it feels like to have this happen to you. If you think there's some way we could try that out.
Yeah, I'm certainly willing to manipulate. You just have
I
to
can't believe
recognize-
I'm asking you for that.
You have to recognize, though, you're not going to have the same shock of capture experience.
I hope not.
You know it's coming.
Right.
And there's certainly a psychology to that.
Right.
So what we're doing is a very contrived scenario.
Yeah.
But you probably will get
yeah.
a general sense of it, and you'll certainly get a sense of the isolation.
And that's what you think I'll experience most, is that it's so isolating.
Yeah.
That I just been begging for some relief from that.
Right. And so when the feeling is that you're looking for that relief, that's time to come talk to me about your problems.
Right. And you'll come to me if I don't come to you. Right? I can't come to you.
You're
I'll
not
be
coming to
inside.
anybody.
That's what I mean.
Right.
Yeah.
You have no control.
Right.
Sorry.
That's the point. Okay. I'm giving up now.
Right.
All right, stupid. Listen, I got a few rules for you before you go down with me. Do you hear me?
I hear you.
First thing and last thing out of your mouth is sir. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
First thing and last thing out of your mouth is sir. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Try sir, yes, sir, dummy.
Sir, yes, sir.
Good. Second thing, always have your palms out. Do not ball a fist at me or I'll think you're trying to hit me. If I think you're trying to hit me, I'll rip your fucking head off. Do you understand me?
Yes, sir.
Try sir, yes, sir, dummy.
Sir, yes, sir.
Good Lord, we got a dumb one. Next thing, never be taller than I am tall. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Why are you taller than I am tall? Are you taller than I am tall right now?
No, sir.
You're not. You look taller than I am tall.
Shall I get down, sir?
Very good, dummy.
Okay, sir.
All right, come with me. Let's go. Come on, stupid. What do you say?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go.
Yes, sir.
Try, sir. Yes, sir, dummy.
Sir, yes, sir.
Good. What you putting your hands out for? You trying to hit me?
Yes, sir.
Turn right. There you go. Put your hands down. You're going to hit somebody. Bend your knees.
Let the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the...
Mike mentioned earlier that you forget the reality. And of course, I began to wonder now exactly how long is this going to go on? How long does my good friend with a camera think this is a cool thing to shoot? And how soon should I break style at a certain point? I even began to think, I really just realizing this, I began to think like a prisoner. I began to think, will they get mad at me if I stop kneeling? What would happen if I lay down? Would somebody come and hit me? And I mean, the fact that I would actually even think that gives you a sense of what this would be like after more than a few minutes, I think.
The Sound Lab of the University of Montreal. Here, scientists examine how music affects our brains and our feelings. The setup is unique. Musicologists, neuroscientists, and psychologists combine their expertise to find out, for example, whether music can trigger particular negative emotions, a quality that would make it perfect for torture.
Sensory dissonance means, for example, two notes that are very close in terms of pitch. This dissonance creates a kind of friction in the outer ear, and our brain interprets this as something unpleasant. We also know that dissonant music activates certain brain regions that are associated with the perception of negative emotions.
This experiment shows how our bodies respond to unpleasant sounds. These electrodes measure skin conductivity, heart rate, and blood pressure, while the test person listens to music. The candidate rates this piece as pleasant. But her body reacts very differently to the dissonant piece. She rates it as unpleasant. This feeling has nothing to do with musical taste or cultural background, but is related to how specific structures in the brain respond to music.
The amygdala are regions that are located in the temporal lobes. Sorry about the scientific terms. But they sit near the center of the brain. There is one on each side. They are shaped like almonds and made up of different cores. What's special about the amygdala is that they have connections to several other brain regions, the visual system and the auditory system. So they are well placed to receive signals, for example, acoustic alarm signals, and then send them to several other regions of the brain. And we now also know that music can trigger fear, and that the recognition of this fear takes place in this structure.
The results of this work show that music can evoke discomfort, anxiety, and even fear. Perfect qualities for a psychological weapon.
This is the end. Beautiful friend.
Bombs, napalm, and music. During the Vietnam War, Americans fought with all their military power. It was a cruel war, one they could not win with conventional weapons alone.
Everybody get off the middle of this LZ.
In order to defeat the Viet Cong, psychological operations experts like Herb Friedman counted on musical warfare to tip the scales.
We had tanks with loudspeakers on them. We had jeeps with loudspeakers. We had aircraft that could fly over with loudspeakers. And we had men that actually put the loudspeakers on their back. They had little packs that they would just walk right into the jungle and they would play it.
The Americans wanted to beat the Vietnamese with military might, but at the same time win their hearts and minds. Therefore, they commissioned pro-American songs to win them over. But when the Viet Cong intensified their attacks, the US military strategy changed. From now on, eerie sounds poured out of the backpack speakers.
The Vietnamese have a tradition that if you don't die close to home, when you're not buried close to home, your soul will wander forever. So the Americans actually used that and started a campaign called The Wandering Soul. And we produced tapes that had funeral music, funeral dirges, very sad music. And in the background, you'd hear the voice of a dead father telling his daughter, his wife, he wasn't coming home, he was going to wander forever. And it was used to attempt to demoralize the soldiers still in the field.
There is no evidence whether the psychedelic soundscape ever convinced any Viet Cong to give up fighting. The US lost the war, nevertheless. Today, the US military uses music as a weapon much more deliberately and effectively. Chris has flown to London. Here, he wants to meet a man who was arrested as an alleged terrorist in Pakistan in 2002.
We're going to go meet Mozam Beg now, who was actually a detainee who was held at Guantanamo. So this is the first time that I'm really going to meet someone who might actually have been exposed to music being used as part of interrogations. And what better way to learn about it than to learn firsthand?
On the night of the 31st of January 2002, there was a knock on my door. I opened the door. A group of people barged into my house. One put a gun straight to my head, pushed me onto the forecourt of my house. They tied my hands behind my back, shackled my legs, and put a hood over my head and carried me to the back of the vehicle in front of my wife and kids.
Mozam Beg is a British citizen, but in 2001 he moved to Pakistan with his family. He says he went there to build a school for girls. But US authorities have accused Mozam Beg of having worked for Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. For over 3 years, they kept him prisoner in Bagram and Guantanamo. During his time there, he was interrogated more than 300 times. In the end, the authorities released him without charge.
The moment I was handed over to US military custody is when the mistreatment began. It began being thrown onto the floor, shackled, punched, kicked, clothes ripped off, dogs barking at me.
Had this kind of thing happened at Bagram? Did it happen at Guantanamo as well?
The treatment in Guantanamo, I would say, was more tortuous than torturous. Nonetheless, extended periods of isolation in Guantanamo are what destroy people's minds. There have been, of course, deaths in Guantanamo. People still maintain that what's happening to the people over there is a form of torture, but it is not the physical type of torture that we had in Bagram.
Now, so I want to get back to the music. Why do you think that they picked music as part of this mix?
In this situation, clearly it was purely to disorient the enemy, as it were. They chose songs, I remember, from Marilyn Manson and Metallica, and I suppose I had the privilege or the discomfort to know the difference.
Because you knew these songs from having grown up in the UK.
I knew these songs very well. I listened to many of them or avoided many of the others. Nonetheless, I knew the difference. Sadly, many of the prisoners there didn't. To them, it was all Western music. And this was just another addition to what must have been a barrage of Western attitudes, Western influence, Western culture onto their senses, which, and again, the only thing that they had seen of America was this. The only thing that they had seen was the occupation, was the prison, and now the music, which was being used as a technique to, in addition to being short shackled, which is your hands tied to your legs, in addition to being dehumanized, to being shaved forcibly, to being removed from your home and from your environment, now you're subjected to your ears are subjected to the sounds of something that is entirely unfamiliar, very disconcerting, very disorientating.
And played very loud, right?
The music was so loud that everybody in the block would hear it. None of us could sleep.
Is music really that bad compared to, say, waterboarding or being forced into a stress position or kept awake for days? Why is music in particular so considered torture?
I think that one may argue and say music is not that bad, but it's not just music. It's not music isolated by itself. Nobody's made to go and sit and simply put on headphones and listen at their leisure and control the sound and the decibels of how much they listen to. They are, in addition to being tied, being shackled, being beaten and tortured and confined, in addition to all of this, they are being subjected to not just ordinary music. It's music that if I was to subject you or anybody, I think the average person to, and turn on the music extremely loud, just for a few minutes, I'm pretty certain you would be saying that I can't hear myself think. And that's the precise point, because if you can't hear yourself think, you can't think. If you can't think, you have no control of your senses. If you have no control of your senses, you are, for all intents and purposes, a completely vegetated person. And that's the point, to put somebody in an almost vegetative state where they are simply ready to say anything, comply with anything, only so that the music can be turned down.
Music and torture, music and war. At the University of Göttingen, a research group deals with precisely these issues.
The history of music and warfare is as old as the history of warfare itself.
In ancient times, troops used drums and trumpets to transmit signals on the battlefield. In the 16th century, these sounds inspired marches, chants, and battle songs. But early on, military leaders realized that music is especially good at strengthening the esprit de corps.
Particular forms of music, particularly singing, we know them to be very, very effective when it comes to reinforcing group solidarity, for example.
During the German Empire, patriotic songs like Old Comrades was used to motivate the troops.
But it wasn't just a way of encouraging them to go into battle, but it was a way of maintaining some kind of discipline.
Rhythm and beat, to promote power and hatred. Adolf Hitler was aware of the psychological effects of music. Therefore, he centralized music production in Germany only months after he came to power, to better control what his people listened to.
It was one of the most systematic approaches to really utilising music in every possible aspect of public and political life.
Hitler established the so-called Reich Music Chamber. This authority produced only Nazi-compliant music. Propaganda included warmongering songs like From Finland to the Black Sea. Chief propagandist Joseph Goebbels commissioned the song himself. The emotional power of music helped to kindle the bloodlust of the Germans. Even during the war, the Wehrmacht tried to keep up morale through rallying songs like the Panzerlied. And even in defeat, music had its purpose, to provide comfort and a way to escape reality. Baghdad, a depressing mixture of war and everyday life. The soldiers here have to cope with boredom and the constant fear of attacks. Music is a way to escape from all of this. Almost everyone here has a portable CD player or an iPod. They download their music off the internet. To them, it's like a drug, a way to unwind, or to get ready for the next battle.
And my CD's down here with me, and I'm content, I'm peaceful. As long as I have this, and also a set of batteries, I'm all set. I got my music and I'm happy.
I really like real fast, heavy metal out in this place. It helps me get through the day.
Slayer, the two songs would be Angel of Death and Raining Blood. They're just two real aggressive heavy metal songs that I like and keeps me motivated.
It's the ultimate rush, because you know you're going into the fight to begin with, and then you got a good song playing in the background, and that gets you real fired up.
The song "Let the Bodies Hit the Floor" by Drowning Pool. This is the one we listen to the most. This is the one we try when we're killing the enemy, going through war, coming up here into Iraq, coming up into Baghdad. Drowning Pool, "Let the Bodies Hit the Floor," because it was fitting for the job we were doing.
Nothing wrong with me. Nothing wrong with me. Nothing wrong with me. Nothing wrong with me. One, something's got to give. Two, something's got to give. Three, something's got to give. Yeah! Let the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the
Bodies by Drowning Pool could be considered the unofficial anthem of the US military. But Christopher wants to meet the band for a different reason. Their music was also used to torture prisoners. He wants to know from the band whether they are just as upset about this as he is. Today, Drowning Pool plays next to one of the largest naval bases in the United States. But there is a problem.
Actually, I'm a little nervous about this interview because we got an email this morning from Drowning Pool's manager saying that they weren't supposed to talk to us about Guantanamo, or we weren't supposed to ask them anything about that. And after all, that's why I came here. So how can I possibly find out what I want to know about the use of this music to torture prisoners if we're not allowed to talk about it?
absolutely crazy. It's pump-up music. It's everything you think about. Marines.
Are you a Marine too?
Hell yeah. As these bands make it what it is. They say support our troops, you know what? Not enough people do. They let out a different side of us.
Something's got to give. Two, something's got to give. Three, something's got to give. Now! Let the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the
I'm just curious, you guys have a lot of military fans. Do these guys ever tell you why they like your music so much?
What we hear from guys, you know, that are in different fields or what have you.
And gals.
And gals,
yeah, right.
is that, yeah, it gets them pumped up, it gets them on their toes and on their edge.
And some guys say they actually play it before they have to go on a mission.
You know,
something.
they wire in like their iPods into like the tank system. I probably shouldn't say this, but they did show me how they do it. And they get to rock out in their in their headsets while they're actually.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, I don't know if we're like the unofficial.
We're like kind of
like soundtrack of the military. I wouldn't say that, but I mean, guys, you know, if they're in their Humvee or their tank, you know, they're M1 and they're cruising and there's 6 of them, you know, they'll strap a boombox down and the guy up there, you know, looking out as they're cruising, you know.
I always wondered though if I were there, if I would fire on the beat or something like that.
I mean, let's not get too carried away.
No, I'm
though.
just.
I mean, nobody wants to think of their song as being the soundtrack.
I know,
to death. But at the same time, if cranking us to 11, you know, keeps you alert and on your toes and gets you back done from your mission and then thusly back home to your wives and family and kids, then by all means blast that thing. I mean, if it's gonna keep you and your guys and your girls awake until 4, 5, 6 in the morning, then by all means jam it.
Is there anything political about your music at all, do you think, or is it just great rock and roll?
I think lyrically our music is not political at all, honestly. I mean, we do have a song, Soldiers, which is kind of a thank you and a hats off to our military and every, you know, country's military for essentially, you know, the end result having, you know, peace at the end of the day, trying to keep the peace. You know, it sucks that you have to go to war to keep peace, but, you know, that just is, you know, it's where it's been through history, you know, it's been going on through history, but,
we could argue, I mean, you can argue all day, you know, should somebody be somewhere, should we be, you know, the world police, you know, and, you know, there's a lot of things that we all feel strongly about, you know, separately within the band. There's things that we feel very firm on collectively. Are we a politically driven band? I don't think anybody who knows who we are would honestly think that we are. I mean, we're just a rock and roll band.
I don't want to put you in a position you don't want to answer.
Yeah, whatever you want.
But do you feel when the government uses the music, say, with detainees instead of to help our own military, do you feel the same about that? Or
yeah,
is it,
I heard that it was used, you know,
for
interrogation, and we jokingly say, you know, anybody has to listen to our music every day is going to be suffering. It's going to be interrogated.
Yeah, we put crowds through that sort of torture all the time.
We torture ourselves every night with this.
Yeah, we shouldn't joke like that, but whatever. That's what.
you gotta make light of it, man. Come on.
Music serves as a stimulant, a torture tool, and now also as acoustic artillery. One example, the Battle of Fallujah in Iraq. In 2004, a mob lynched 4 American security contractors. President Bush vowed revenge.
Our military commanders will take whatever action is necessary to secure Fallujah on behalf of the Iraqi people.
What followed was one of the fiercest and bloodiest battles of the Iraq War. Over 4,000 people died in the 7-month struggle. The street fighting was grueling for both sides. To break the resistance of the Islamist insurgents, the US military began to employ mobile speaker systems.
And Fallujah was a perfect example. They were just playing music day and night over there. It almost got to be a gag like a musical show. The loudspeakers are playing music, and of course the insurgents who were in Fallujah played back. From their mosque, they had loudspeakers on their mosque. They played music back. They played various religious music.
Heavy metal against Islamists. It was also a demonstration of the perceived superiority of Western culture. The US military believes that the musical bombardment helped to undermine the morale of the insurgents.
Psychological operations are now accepted to the point where every unit wants one. So if you have 3 or 4 groups going in, whether they be battalions or regiments, whatever they be, in a certain area, each of those units might call for a team. And then that will come down here, and then Fort Bragg will be tasked with sending a loudspeaker team. So there's much more demand.
The technology of these loudspeakers is becoming more and more sophisticated. The latest models are compact, powerful sound cannons. They can burst eardrums, cause nausea, and can even make people unconscious. Vahan Simidian builds these acoustic warhammers.
It's a powered loudspeaker that works at very long distances with perfect clarity. That is not what a normal loudspeaker does. It makes it more intelligible, it makes it louder, and it throws it farther.
Business is brisk. Every day, dozens of these small, high-performance speakers are assembled into large sound cannons. Cannons that knock out the enemy not with bullets, but with sensory overload. What's scary is not just their looks.
It's like it's here. How is that possible? If I blindfolded you, and I turned you around, and I said, tell me where the sound is coming from, you would be confused. That's what makes our device very helpful in the military.
In September 2009, anti-G20 summit protesters in Pittsburgh witnessed the effectiveness of a similar system.
Go back to Kentucky!
In about 2 years, we will change the way wars are fought. We will change the way aggression is created to subdue somebody. And it probably will be one of the last efforts that we make, because we will figure that by that time, that device should end the need to kill.
The proud inventor is, naturally, not at liberty to tell us what these super sound cannons look like. That's top secret. But doubts may be raised whether his sound gun will really spell the end of all wars. People will still die from bullets and bombs. But music will increase the arsenal of modern armies with yet another insidious weapon.
Music is just part of an effort to make you lose your identity, make you lose your confidence, making you malleable in a sense, taking away your self-control, your self-esteem, all those things. If somehow my song I stopped them from using my song, I'd feel that I'd done something moral and good, perhaps, but they would use somebody else's song. If all of us stopped them from using songs, then they would use noise. And if you stop noise, they would do something else. The real issue is not, to me, music, but is torture. It's not necessarily the music itself that is such a weapon. It's music as part of a means of controlling the environment. And the person in charge, if they can control someone's environment, they've taken their free will away completely. And that's a very powerful weapon.